Great work.
Thank you.
All right, so Geoff Bunza now is going to talk to us about animation and lighting. So Geoff, I'll turn to you, sir.
You need to unmute yourself, Geoff.
I got to punch all the right buttons too. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, when last we left off, I posed a question, and the question was, can you count all the animations in the little video? And just to refresh your memory, it's sort of a trick question. We'll get to that real fast. So the obvious ones are the crossing and the gate, but there's one more.
Is it the frog's eyes?
No, but you're really close. It's the Firefly. I always put this in because the first time I actually showed this in a clinic, every single person got up in the clinic at the end, because it was the last demo in the clinic. Every single person got up and had to go and inspect this thing. And I was just floored. We were in there so long that it turned out that we held everything up. This is done in a little bit different way because it again uses an LED, but it's an ultraviolet LED. So you can't really see it. But the way you get the little Firefly to light up is you take a drop of Tester's fluorescent paint over here, yellow in this case, and you take the smallest drop you can and you put it on the edge of a bush. And then through a tube, you focus the beam of the ultraviolet LED and it lights it up. The big deal, and the reason why I'm talking about this as an example, is not because of making probably the smallest animation you could make in HO scale, but rather because the thing that makes it an animation is the blinking. And it turns out if you go out of your way, you will find that you can locate, somebody did research on every single Firefly in the world, and it'll tell you the repetition rate at a particular temperature with the duration of the Firefly flash. And so I looked up one for North America, and that's how we got to that. But it's kind of a cool little thing. And when I actually published it, I got about, I don't know, 20 follow-ons that were talking about, well, I want a whole bush. How do I do that? Well, that was beyond me, so we dropped that. Anyway, I'm trying to get to the distinction between a lighting feature where you have a light that turns on and off, regardless of how small it is, and something where it gives you the impression of life. It gives you the impression of movement, or it gives you the impression or the implication that something else is going on. So all of these lighting effects up here are simply ones that you turn on and off. Here are ones where either they are required to be a certain duration, like the Firefly for a particular Firefly, or in case of the FRA rules, the way that the gate is illuminated and blinks, or a crossing signal, there's a specific set of criteria, which, by the way, changes over a century of use. So depending on how you're going to use it, it's going to be changed. This over here down at the bottom is not a person with a spotlight on the reefer, but it's actually a triggered animation of a guy taking a photograph of a passing train. And I wrote up a little thing about that, I think, in my blog. But it's the flash there that gives you the impression that the guy's doing something other than standing around. So I want to get to something else, which is taking a look at buildings. And this is actually going to be relevant for the build of the Gray House that we'll probably talk about a little later. But how you deal with simply turning something on and off versus animating the turn on or turn off is a big deal, and it changes things from a lighting feature to a lighting animation. So over here, when you see this set of windows here, it represents by the color and also by the way it turns on a set of fluorescent lights in a wide area. Whereas over here, you might see something like this and there's a party going on. In the corner, you're going to see a welder being simulated by a semi-random effect of a blue light and a white light. And we're going to see all these different things. And something that'll be relevant for the build is the way that the windows are particularly lit by placement of the LED, but also by how they come on and when they come on. So by virtue of demonstrating that, and there is a background sound to this, but it's mostly irrelevant. But here in the lower corner, you can see the welder operation going on there. You'll notice also that the windows don't just flash on and off. And there you just saw the fluorescence coming on in the lab there too. And the pace of the windows coming on is very slow. They stay on for a while as if somebody entered the room. It's not like lighting a Christmas tree with a bunch of lights. There's a prediction or a purpose behind how the lights actually go on from point to point. And here comes our party. So you can go from something in the background that basically does nothing, that's got a bunch of lights on it, to, or that's turned on or off, maybe on a timer, to effects where there are implications being given about what's going on in particular rooms. So you have of life rather. And here are different styles of windows. Here's a window that's completely open. This character goes away from the window so you can't see him and then back again. These windows, if you see here, are all sprayed with dull coat, and they give a great effect of a dirty window, but not a frosted window. You can see that over here from the character behind it. And here on things that I have a room particularly decorated, I make crystal clear to dramatically show the effect of whatever's going on inside. All of this can be done by sequencing the lights going on and off, in some cases sounds going on and off, in some cases movement going on and off. And I talked about using a mechanical sequencer like this a couple of times ago. We can also create out of individual components, electronic circuits. This little module at the bottom over here, you can actually buy off of eBay. I haven't looked for it recently, but it was only like 89 cents or something. And it basically goes one after another and lights one light after another. And here, just as over here, what you can do instead of lighting a light, you can turn something on and off. You can turn on an effect, you can turn on a motor, things like that. And by controlling the timing, you get to control the on-off sequence. So all of these things are relatively simple to go and see. But in animation, you want to go way beyond that. You actually want to control and coordinate all these things going on and off. And you typically wind up switching a whole bunch of things, not just one or two. So for really simple things, you can, turn on some LEDs or turn on a motor, but we also want to coordinate that with sound. So in order to do that, we need to advance to the next step. And this is where I'm setting up what's about to come. We're going to use a thing called an Arduino. And an Arduino is not a good Italian cafe nor Italian coffee, but it is a board that was originally designed in Italy to teach other people who didn't want to know anything at all about computers, how to use computers. So it literally started as a teaching tool, and the thing that's different. Say again?
Said I need one of those.
Oh, okay, great. Well, it turns out that there's only about 24 different kinds. And next time we'll talk a little bit more about which ones do what. But this is one of the very early ones called an Uno. Arduino Uno. And you can read all about this at this site down here. And I'm also going to give you another reference in a couple of slides. But the big deal about all this is that see all these pins up here and down here? It turns out that they are all can be used as switches. So this thing has 20 controlled switches. And it literally, as far as you're concerned, literally looks like this, like the old knife switch you might have had as a boy or a girl, that you throw one way and it connects us to 5 volts. You throw it the other way and it connects it to ground or common. And that's what each of these pins over here, these are little sockets. Here's another set of 6 sockets down here. And this is the device that we can set up to control all these switches. Now, obviously, I don't just want to turn them on and off. What I'd like to do is to turn them on and off in a sequence. I'd like to turn them on and off with not just turning on LEDs, but maybe turning on a motor or turning on a sound. And there's a really interesting attribute of the controller for all these switches here. I can control all those switches with about 1/100th of a millisecond accuracy. Now, you might not think that that's a big deal, but what it means is I can turn those switches on and off really fast, but I can also do the opposite. If I wanted to, I could turn them on and off really slow, because the other thing that this thing has got is a timer on board. And I can use that timer relative to turning those switches on and off in lots of different ways. And now for the best part. Lots of people all around the world, including yours truly, have written all kinds of sequences for model railroading to do all kinds of interesting things, such that all you have to do is learn how to set this guy up by connecting a USB connector here, and we showed back before. Connect a USB cable to this connector here. That goes into your laptop. You go to this site over here and download the software for the particular computer that you want to work with, like a Windows machine or a Linux machine or a Mac, an Apple Mac. And then you can go and set up by downloading into this chip, a sequence that's going to control these 20 switches. Now, you don't have to program. You don't have to know anything except how to go and set up and download a program. And if you want to be really clever, you can change the timing of all that stuff with an editor. And if you have been able to sign up for the emails for this webcast, you have all the knowledge necessary to make those changes. So anybody that says, I don't want to learn programming, guess what? I don't want to learn it either. And I don't want to teach it to you. And I'm not going to. But I will show you how to download and edit things so that you can do all kinds of neat things with your model. So what I'm showing you here is the basis of a tool. And the neatest thing and the easiest thing I can show you how to use that tool is to turn on all those LEDs in whatever shape or form we talked about prior to this. And that's why we spent so much time talking about LEDs. I'm going to leave this up for a bit because you can go back and play the tape and you don't have to copy it down. It's the reference set to all the things we've talked about up to this point for LEDs and testers and tools and all that stuff. And here you'll find a set of things to talk about what you can do with animation, with Arduinos, and the full range of things that are available. And there's actually a lot more because this is the tip of the iceberg. Usually when I go through and do the introduction to animation with LEDs and Arduinos and stuff, I usually get somebody in the class that puts his hand up and says, I don't want to learn how to turn on LEDs. How boring. I could wire a switch to do that. Yeah, but I could turn on lots of them in all kinds of interesting ways to create effects that you can't do just by flicking a switch. And I can do it a lot more accurately than you ever could. And I could take that same one Arduino, and by resequencing it, I can make it do a wealth of activities. And that's what this is all about, giving you a tool to build far better models than I'll ever be able to do. So what we've done is set the stage for the next 1 or 2 webcasts, and then we may take a hiatus after that. But I wanted to set you up so that you can do some really neat stuff with all the things that we've talked about so far. Are there any questions?
Well, I think that's fantastic. I may even understand a little bit about the Arduino now.
Well,
doubt
if you don't now, you will.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you so very much. That's
You're welcome.
fantastic.